questions about the chassis for the new Mercury Saber, and I wanted to address a couple of those things. First, when you get it, I am shipping these with the chassis already installed on the emitter. That's just, it's really for my ease of shipping. So I know it's secured. Also for the people who don't want to try to mess with attaching it. It is a little fiddly, so I thought I'd go through it. When you're going to get this, when you get this chassis, it's going to actually have the door that covers your sound card. It's a hinge door. For demonstration purposes, I left this one off just so you could see everything. The chassis is mounted to the emitter via two 440 threaded rods, one on either side, at the top of the emitter connection and the bottom of the emitter connection. And how those mount is, let's see if I can get my light a little better. They mount with these little, they're 440 threaded inserts. They're actually for 3D printing. So you can actually insert these into a hot, like with a soldering iron, into a 3D print, and you can screw a 440 screw into them. But they work great as little chassis retention. So they're knurled, so you can actually kind of get your finger on there and fingernail. Can you see that moving? See that turning? All right, so that's basically how you take these off and put these on. So I've cut these threaded rods to just the right length, so they will have just the right amount of room in that slot and not have much hanging out. So it's a little tricky taking them on and off. So what you want to do is you actually want to unthread these on both sides. You're going to do that on both sides. Can you see this? It's unthreading on both sides. And what that's going to do is that nut is going to hit the plastic at the top. It's captive. It's not going to be able to go any further than that right there. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to slide this chassis away from the emitter right here. And this is an HP, this is a PA12 nylon chassis. So it's pretty durable, but you don't want to break it. So you just want to be careful when you do it. You want to grab it securely on both the emitter end and the chassis end. And you just want to kind of slowly kind of work them. You can rock them back and forth a little bit. And see how that just put a little bit of space right in there? That's going to be enough to unthread these screws the rest of the way. And see how that screw is now loose in there? We're going to do the other one right here. We're going to thread it back. And they're just standard righty-tighty, lefty-loosey screws. Now see how that one kind of fell out? This rod is just ever so slightly shorter than the other one. That's because there's a button here. So the depth of the threaded rod doesn't go in quite as far. So when I cut them, I cut them uneven. If you take them out, you'll see. Anyway, so they're threaded all the way. And all you do is you just grab both the emitter and the chassis firmly, and then just walk it back just a little bit, and you heard that drop out. What that happened was that little nut just dropped right out, and this one just turns right out. So now they're free. You can see if I push this back together, now you can see the threaded rods and how they stick out. So all you have to do, so this just slides right off. There's your threaded rods. That's how the chassis is mounted, via those threaded rods, and this hole in the far corner here, and that hole in the far corner there. And all they do is they just slide back through those holes and just, kind of gently, got to make sure they go through this hole right here too. There's a hole there and a hole there. So just take your time. If you take this chassis off when you install it, and then just slide them through. I did that with my hand in front of the camera, so let me do that. Bear with me. I'm not used to making these kind of how-to videos. So it slides on, and you can see those threaded rods going in, and that one just happened to thread right in there, go right in the hole, and it just slides right on up in there. And if you push it all the way closed, you're going to see that you don't have any room left over to put your nuts on. So when you want to put your nuts back on, all you do is you take it just apart, just a little bit. You still want to see a little bit of the threaded rod showing. All right? And because what you're going to do is you're going to put this nut in there just really gently sideways. And I can't really see what I'm doing because of the camera. It's kind of in my way. So I'm sorry if I'm fumbling this around. I've gotten pretty good at this, so I work it usually pretty fast. So you just kind of set it on top, and then you just kind of start spinning it a little bit until it catches. There you go. Oh, almost got it. I can't see what I'm doing, so it's a little difficult. This is why I go ahead and install them before I send them out, just in case you don't want to mess with this. You don't have to. Now, I've gotten real good at this, but because of this camera being right in between me and the chassis, I'm not able to get it in there. I promise you it goes in. You've just gotta kind of finagle it a little bit. And that nut, if you keep spinning it the right way, it will thread right on that nut. You can always adjust how much of this rod sticks out. Take a little bit less out of there and see if you can get it on. There it is. I just got it right there. All I did was back the chassis off, which exposed less of the threaded rod. So there was just 1 or 2 threads sticking up from the top. It kind of looked like that right there. Can you see that in the light? See, oh, there you go. You see how there's just like 1 thread at the top right there? Right there. All right. So this one is caught the threads and is ready to tighten. So what I generally do then is I push the chassis back just ever so slightly on that side so I can tighten that back down. And that's only about halfway tight, but that's all you want right now, because now we have to put the other little nut on there. And see, again, there's just like a thread sticking out of there. You don't want too much because you got to be able to maneuver your nut in there. And I put that in just right. Let's see if that catches. Right? Nope. Thought it was. Got ahead of myself. So what I might need is just a little bit more threaded rod sticking through there. See, that's maybe too much, but we'll try it. Put your little threaded insert in there and just start spinning. And we might have, maybe we're close to getting it right there. No, you just don't want to cross thread it. Although with your fingertips like this, it's really hard to cross thread because you just don't have the torque to cross thread it. So let's, oh, there it is. And see, now it's tightening. So all you do is just bring this down a little bit, close that gap, and then you see how you got some space in there. All you have to do is tighten it up. And then bring this space over here, close that up, and then come right here and tighten that side down. And these only need to really be finger tight. If you really want to make sure they don't move, you could dab like a little E6000 or something right there on the end, just so it doesn't move. But you don't want to put anything on the threads themselves, because then you'd never get these off. Well, you probably could with like needle nose pliers or something, but they really only need to be finger tight. You really just kind of run your finger sideways until those things won't tighten anymore. Right, like that, and then tight like that. And make sure you've got no gap in your chassis, between your chassis and your emitter. And that is tightened. So that was us removing those nuts, removing the chassis, exposing the threaded rods, putting the chassis back on, and reinstalling and retightening these nuts. Like I said, they're a little fiddly. I apologize for that. Oval hilt sabers have super tight, no room in them. Oh, that's kind of a cool effect. Look at that. My logo in the pommel, by the way. That's a neat, woo, that's kind of trippy. But there's just no room. I mean, this chassis fills this thing up completely. There is no room for anything in here. So these little nuts are the only things I could find that would give me the clearance. See how that doesn't go above the chassis right there? If it does, I mean, it's just like fractions of a millimeter. So that is how you remove these threaded insert nuts and take your chassis off if you need to do that to install it, and then how to put it back on and how to fiddle with these guys right here. Like I said, they're super fiddly, and the first time you do it, you're gonna be cussing at me because they are difficult to do. But seriously, if you follow those instructions I just gave you and push that chassis on to where there's only a little tiny bit of thread sticking up out of this hole, it's so much easier to get that nut to thread on there. You don't want to force it on. It's not about force. You just want to take your finger and just kind of roll that nut until it catches that first thread, and then roll it until it's tight on that first thread and push it down just a little bit more, and then you can tighten it up just a little bit more so you're sure it won't come off. Then you flip it around and then you work on the other side. And then once you get both of them on, then you can push the chassis all the way down to where it's flush with the emitter, and then you can just tighten both of these. I mean, all you're doing is just tightening those nuts. Okay, so if there are any other questions about this chassis or the Mercury hilt in general, I am happy to answer them. Please feel free to ask any questions that you need. I'm here for you, and if you, like I said, if you run into anything, just let me know. Thank you so much to everybody who has purchased one of these hilts. This has been kind of my baby and sort of my albatross for the past year. It has taken me over a year to get these things released, and I am very excited that they're finally out. People are giving them really good reviews so far, the people who have them in hand already. So thanks again, and if you need anything, just let me know. Take care.